Nagarjuna was a monk who had to beg for food every day. One day a queen offered a golden bowl to the venerable one, which is encrusted with various jewels. He simply used the bowl to collect alms. A thief saw this and decided to steal the bowl, so he followed the master. After the master finished his meal, he simply gave the bowl to the thief. The thief was stunned to receive such a treasure. "Why would you give me this golden bowl with all these precious jewels for no reason?" The master replied, "Because I have many treasures, far more precious than this." Hearing this, the thief became greedy and asked for more. "If you have something even more precious, could you please give that to me as well?" So Nagarjuna gave him the pith instructions for recognizing the nature of mind. After receiving the instructions, the thief felt an immense sense of joy and well-being. He then asked if there were any requirements. "Just use these instructions to observe your mind every time you go steal something. That's all you need to do." After about 15 days, he returned to Nagarjuna and said, "The instructions you gave me have become a major obstacle. In these 15 days I haven't managed to steal a single thing. Whenever I'm about to steal, I observe my mind, and the desire to steal just vanishes. What should I do?" The master told him, "Well, then you should just give up the practice." But the thief replied, "I can't give it up. During these 15 days, I've felt an incomparable joy, a happiness I have never experienced in my entire life. From now on, even all the wealth and glory of a kingdom could not compare to the peace I find in recognizing the nature of mind. I will never abandon these instructions.